Florida goes down to Florida State. Excuse me. Geography goes up to Florida State and going to take on the Seminoles. My ESPN app has crashed. So no, here we go. Now I got to back up. ESPN likes the Seminoles 81.4% on the FPI predictor thingamabob. Over under is set at 49.5. Vegas likes the Seminoles. What feels low, 6.5. That feels incredibly low. I think roster for roster, talent for talent, one man on man. I don't know that there's a position group where I like Florida more. Or where I would like Florida more. I like State across the board, man.
Yeah, and I mean it is at Florida. That's really all they've got going for them. I mean, it's not game in the swamp is their main advantage, but it's the backup quarterback show. That's the great unknown. I'm with you. Every position group, man. And look, Florida has ran up some numbers because they've been having to either throw for 400 or run for 300 to win games. Is the way it feels. So they've ran off some numbers, so they're probably pretty competitive when you look at the stats. But here are some that are really, really bad for them. Florida State has not allowed 30 points to any opponent this year. Florida State, 5 turnovers, 11 games. That's outrageous.
That's crazy.
I don't even understand how you do that and don't have literal accidents or perfect hits on the football while you're running. That's astounding. But yeah, I mean, there's just not much that favors Florida unless young Max Brown is just a freak of nature. Rodemaker, he is the older quarterback. He's not played a ton. I get that, but he's stepped in for Jordan Travis before. He's done this before. Travis has been injured before, obviously.
Yep.
It's impossible to pick a quarterback to me because who's going to do what, especially in a rival game that is not that close this year. I think there's going to be a lot of emotions in this game, but just everything, absolutely everything except for the unknown and the home field advantage goes in the Seminoles' direction.
If you take roster out of the consideration, I'm still going to take Florida State. I'm going to take them for 2 reasons. Florida State is still playing for something, right? They're still playing for something. And I like the backup quarterback situation better at Florida State than I do for Florida. I think you nailed it. Rodemaker's been there. He's not new to Norvell or this system. And Seminoles still have a lot left on the table. And if this is a chance in national spotlight for Rodemaker to do something, which we said on the previous episode, like if he can do something, maybe he can convince the committee that he's good enough to lead this team into the playoffs and compete well, possibly even win it. And I'll say this at the end of the day. Jordan Travis, Tate Rodemaker, Michael Walker. You're throwing to Keon Coleman.
Exactly.
You're throwing to Jaheim Bell. You're handing off to Trey Benson. You're throwing to Johnny Wilson. I like that. Now I do think that Florida State has done this thing where they've played to the level of their competition. But this is a bit of rivalry, right? So probably going to be easy to get up for this one. Should be anyway. I don't know that it makes a difference that it's in Gainesville. I think Florida State can do a good job of taking the crowd out early. I'm going to go ahead and get to my prediction and my final here. I'm going to take the Seminoles 45-31. I just think that the Seminoles have got too much, whether it be intangible or tangible, whether it be roster or locker room, whatever it is. I just think too much favors Florida State. And I could even see with Tate Rodemaker under center a blowout here in the Seminole favor.
Yeah, I mean, just yet again, the only scenario that would surprise me would be if Florida just handed them a big loss. Do they eke out a close game? Maybe because of the unknowns, because of the injury. Maybe they're just deflated. I don't know. But another issue for Florida, you just nailed one, or really you nailed both. Tate Rodemaker is thrown to Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell, and Keon freaking Coleman. He's turning around. He's handing the ball off to Benson. The other thing that you just mentioned, they're fighting to show that they still belong as a top 4 team. I just don't see them getting left out if they manage to be an unbeaten team. Now that will include their conference championship game against a much tougher Louisville, like we've talked about how resurgent they are, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I just can't find a reason based on what I've seen from Florida. And look, Max Brown almost pulled off a comeback after Graham Mertz was knocked out of the game in Columbia, Missouri against a really good Missouri team. And I think I've said for a long time that Missouri was going to wear them out in November because it would be cold. Florida has, lacks all of these weapons. They're, et cetera, you name it. I've said all those things, and that did not play out that way. They were very fortunate needing to convert the 4th and 17 that we talked about to win the game. But there's just nothing that's going to lead me to believe that Florida wins this game until I see it. There's nothing. I'm sorry. Man, I'm sitting on some low numbers today. I feel like this is, again, why I got out of sports betting, because my gut just leads me incorrectly so often. I'm going to go Seminoles 31, Gators 17.
I like it. There's a number of possibilities, big, close, whatever, where I just see Seminoles on top. I think the only way you're going to surprise me if the Gators pull this out.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can maybe eke one out, but if they did anything more than that, I'd be shocked.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue and say that Florida's playing for bowl eligibility here, but truth be told, what does a bowl mean to this generation these days? I mean, we started to see this in the early 2010s when Tyler Bray threw Kentucky to not go bowling.
Yeah, and exactly, especially if you're going to be a very limited roster again, like you were last year when Oregon State demolished you. That does more harm than good, arguably.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the extra practices with your young guys. Sure, that's great. You're obviously going to have to focus on your quarterback of the future if he's on the roster.
Yeah.
Now that Graham Mertz is, going to be out of eligibility. But yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you on that. There's not a good outcome. 6-6, 5-7. Say you win this game and a bowl game, you're 7-6. What does that prove to me? I mean, absolutely nothing. You can't prove anything to me, but even if you win this game, because you're not beating Jordan Travis if you do win the game. And props to you if you win it, but you're not doing that. For sure.
The only thing I would say to Florida is if the bowl eligibility thing is even a conversation, it's probably only a conversation for those who are out of eligibility. Like they want another game, they want more time in pads, but that's all going to be up to Billy Napier, and I'm not convinced he is that kind of guy yet that he can do that. He's left us nothing to assume that he is capable of that. So nonetheless, we're both going to take Florida State. I'm taking them 45-31. Mike is taking them 31-17.
Two quick things for you. When you go in the ESPN app, much like we do when we talk about these games, I'm told per this app that you can get into this game for as low as $155. You do the same thing. You look at the Iron Bowl. You can get into the Iron Bowl for under $200, right at $197. Give me a guess for the game, what it costs to get in the door.
Oh gosh. This feels like a trap question. Because you're asking.
I love setting you up for these so much.
Because you're asking, I'm going to assume that it's low. So I'll say under 100. I don't know.
Pretty low, $434.
Wow.
Yeah, that is insane. Love it.
Wow.
I love the dedication to that rivalry.
I read way too much into your face.
I got it.
Pandemonium reigns.